Welcome to a place where perfect families don't exist, and hidden betrayals always find their way into the light. Here, every story begins with trust and ends with a truth no one saw coming. Imagine building a dream with your own hands, only to watch the people you love most turn it into their opportunity. Imagine a wedding sparkling with luxury, secretly funded by stolen sacrifices. Imagine a husband whose promises sound like forever until shocking secrets reveal what love was really worth. On this channel, you'll step inside unforgettable revenge journeys where hospital rooms become battlegrounds, family loyalty is tested beyond repair, and silent heartbreak transforms into unstoppable power. These are raw, emotional, deeply human stories about reclaiming dignity, exposing lies, and delivering justice at the exact moment it hurts the most. If you believe the truth always wins, you're exactly where you belong. The smell of antiseptic still clung to the skin when the truth arrived like a blade. Hospital lights flickered above half-open eyes, pain medication blurring the edges of reality. Yet one notification on the phone screen cut through everything with terrifying clarity. A legal transfer confirmation. An address that had once meant safety. A condo built from sleepless nights, skipped vacations, and stubborn independence. Sold. No conversation, no warning, only signatures that had never been given. Parents stood at the foot of the bed days later, speaking in calm voices about necessary decisions and family priorities. Their smiles felt rehearsed, their explanations polished like they had practiced them in front of a mirror. They spoke about an upcoming wedding as if it were a sacred mission, flowers flown in from Italy, a waterfront venue booked months in advance, designer gowns waiting in silk garment bags, all paid for with money that wasn't theirs. Trust cracked quietly at first, then shattered completely. The man who had once sworn forever leaned closer, brushing hair away from a pale forehead with familiar tenderness. He whispered promises about unity, about forgiving misunderstandings, about letting go of stress during recovery. Yet something in his eyes had changed. A flicker of calculation replaced warmth. Late-night calls taken in hallways, banking apps closed the moment footsteps approached, words that sounded loving but felt like instructions. Healing became secondary to watching, listening, gathering pieces of a puzzle no one expected to be solved. Medical bills piled up while champagne tastings were scheduled. Physical therapy sessions were endured while engagement photos flooded social media. Comments praised family devotion and perfect love stories, never knowing the foundation was soaked in betrayal. Every congratulatory message felt like salt pressed into an open wound. Then the real secret surfaced, debts hidden for years, investments that had failed, a desperate plan to secure a luxurious future before anyone could question the missing property. The condo hadn't just been sold, it had been sacrificed, offered up to protect a man who feared losing status more than losing trust. Strength returned slowly, quietly, like a storm building beneath still water. Evidence collected, documents requested, truth sharpened into something undeniable. They thought surgery would silence everything. They were wrong, because the deepest wounds don't weaken the heart, they teach it exactly where to strike. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across the ballroom like fragments of a dream that had never truly belonged. Every table shimmered with gold-trimmed place settings, imported roses overflowing from towering centerpieces, and the soft hum of a string quartet echoing promises of a flawless future. Guests whispered about how perfect everything looked. No one whispered about what had been taken to make it happen. An invitation had arrived weeks earlier, thick ivory paper sealed with wax, announcing a celebration of love and family unity. The words felt like mockery pressed into elegant script. Recovery scars were still tender beneath carefully chosen silk, each step toward that venue carrying memories of hospital corridors and unanswered questions. He stood at the altar like a man untouched by consequence. Tailored tuxedo, polished smile, eyes scanning the crowd with quiet satisfaction. Once, that smile had meant safety. Now it felt like a performance perfected over years of hidden compromises. Late night, business trips, mysterious withdrawals, promises that love would fix everything if only trust remained unquestioned. Truth had been patient, truth had been watching. Parents floated through the reception like royalty, basking in admiration, accepting compliments about their generosity. They clinked glasses and laughed too loudly, as if celebration could drown out guilt. Every expensive detail screamed the same silent confession. Stolen dreams had been repackaged into wedding decor. Music swelled as vows began. Words about loyalty and forever spilled into the air, heavy with irony. Applause hovered on the edge of release. That was the moment everything stopped. A single signal, a screen flickering to life behind the altar. Bank statements appeared first, then property records, then messages never meant to be seen. Discussions about using surgery as the perfect window, jokes about how love makes people blind, cold calculations about how long it would take before suspicion faded. Gasps rippled through the room like a tidal wave breaking against glass. His face drained of color. The confident groom became a stranger scrambling for explanations that no longer sounded convincing. Parents reached for hands that slipped away. Guests who once admired them now stepped back, whispering with a different kind of fascination. Years of manipulation unraveled in minutes. Carefully constructed reputations collapsed under the weight of undeniable proof. The wedding cake remained untouched, its pristine layers a cruel symbol of illusion stacked too high. Somewhere between the shattered vows and the stunned silence, power returned in a way no apology could ever offer. Because nothing terrifies a liar more than watching their perfect love story turn into public evidence. The hospital room felt like a suspended moment between past and future, where weakness settled into the bones and time stretched endlessly beneath the hum of fluorescent lights. A thin blanket barely covered the ache that surgery had left behind, yet the deeper pain had nothing to do with stitches or medication schedules. It came from the quiet realization that the world outside those walls had shifted without permission. Visitors arrived with sympathetic smiles and carefully chosen words. Parents spoke about responsibility and sacrifice, as if betrayal could be softened by sounding practical. Their voices floated above the bed like distant echoes, never quite landing, never truly comforting. Something in their eyes avoided direct contact, as though honesty might burn if held too long. He came later, bringing flowers that smelled too sweet for the sterile air. Fingers intertwined gently, voice lowered into a reassuring murmur about staying strong and trusting family. Once, those words would have meant everything. Now they sounded rehearsed, like lines memorized for a role that demanded convincing affection. Late messages lighting up his phone screen betrayed another life, whispered deals, hidden frustrations, and a growing impatience with being tied to someone he believed was too fragile to question him. Painkillers dulled the body, but sharpened awareness. Every overheard conversation, every suspicious glance, every financial notification became a thread leading toward an unsettling truth. Recovery turned into observation. Silence became strategy. Strength returned not with dramatic declarations, but with small, deliberate steps, requesting documents, making calls no one expected, rebuilding clarity while pretending to remain dependent. Meanwhile, ambition outside those hospital walls grew louder. Plans for celebrations took shape with disturbing ease. Expensive venues were booked, champagne lists finalized, guest counts confirmed. The future they described sounded dazzling, yet it had been constructed from something stolen, dignity traded for status, trust exchanged for convenience. Memories of love felt distorted now, replayed through the harsh filter of reality. Moments once considered romantic revealed hidden motives, subtle manipulations disguised as devotion. He hadn't just been protecting dreams, he had been protecting himself. By the time discharge papers were signed, helplessness had already transformed into quiet determination. Walking out into sunlight carried a different meaning than simply surviving surgery. It meant stepping into a confrontation no one believed would ever come. Because the greatest mistake they made wasn't taking everything, it was assuming nothing would ever be taken back. The air inside the grand reception hall felt thick with perfume, anticipation, and something far more dangerous, the weight of secrets waiting for the perfect moment to breathe. Soft laughter echoed beneath glowing chandeliers while servers moved gracefully between tables, offering champagne to guests who had no idea they were about to witness a celebration turn into a reckoning. Every step across that polished marble floor carried memories of pain no one in that room had cared to understand. Weeks earlier, fragile breaths had depended on hospital machines, while outside, plans were being finalized with ruthless efficiency. Property papers had changed hands, bank accounts had swelled, promises had been rewritten without consent. He stood surrounded by admiration, shaking hands like a man who had earned every ounce of his success. His smile was effortless, confident, almost radiant. Once, that expression had been enough to silence doubts, to convince the heart that loyalty lived behind those charming words. But charm fades quickly when truth begins collecting evidence. Whispers had reached the ears long before this night. Conversations about debts buried under years of pretending, about investments that had collapsed like fragile glass towers, about the desperate need to secure a future that looked luxurious from the outside. Love had become his most useful currency, trust his most profitable disguise. Parents hovered nearby, glowing with pride as guests praised their generosity. They spoke about unity and sacrifice as if betrayal were simply another form of devotion. Their hands trembled slightly when eyes lingered too long, as though guilt could be felt like static in the air. Then came the moment no one had prepared for. Music softened, lights dimmed. A massive screen flickered awake behind the stage, stealing attention from the vows about to be spoken. At first, confusion rippled through the crowd. Then silence fell, sharp, suffocating silence. Documents appeared one after another, transaction histories, signed approvals, messages filled with cold laughter about timing everything around surgery, plans to sell dreams disguised as family support, proof that the life being celebrated tonight had been built on someone else's stolen foundation. His voice cracked while denying the undeniable. Applause turned into murmurs. Admiration curdled into judgment. Guests who once raised glasses in his honor now stepped back as if betrayal were contagious. Somewhere between shattered illusions and stunned faces, pain finally found its purpose. Because nothing ends a perfect wedding faster than the truth arriving uninvited. Before you go, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next shocking twist, emotional revelation, or unforgettable revenge story. Because the next secret might be even bigger.